Now, the argument I want to make is that all these different profound effects come from one simple lack, the lack of speaking up in a way that is direct, frank, right, honest, and yet respectful when you've got a concern about somebody's performance. People would rather suck raw eggs than hold somebody accountable. Now, we wanted to document this using some research, and I want to spend the next 5 minutes or so sharing what we found. So a bit on the research. We had about 1,100 respondents. 97% of us, think of yourself, can identify at least one what we describe career-limiting habit, a behavior you've got. Like for me, I tend to procrastinate. And not just anything. I tend to procrastinate the jobs that I dislike the most, right? Who else has a career-limiting habit? Anybody here? Right? Yeah, we all do, right? So that's sort of obvious. Now here's where it comes into performance review. Almost 3 out of 4 managers say the biggest barrier to advancement is not technical skills, right? Don't go back to school. It's behaviors. It's these career-limiting habits. It's these behaviors that they see, right? And it gets worse. These same bosses give you less than a 1 in 10 chance of ever changing that career-limiting habit that you've got. So there's a real pessimism out there. It's like a stereotyping that's going on. Here you are, you're not going to change, but it gets worse, okay? We don't feel much more optimistic than our bosses do. When we identify a career-limiting habit in ourselves, we only give ourselves a 1 in 3 chance that we'll ever be able to change it. This is really holding people back, right? So I'm going to argue that the 20th century approach to change has failed us. It's failed us because people haven't changed and they've suffered because they haven't. 87% of employees have suffered economically because they didn't change. And here's the situation. They know they have to change. They want to change, at least they say they want to change, and yet they're unable to change. That's the situation. Performance management processes don't lead to performance improvement. So this is sort of setting the stage for the rest of my talk. I want to argue that the health of a relationship, a team, or an organization is a function of the following: the average lag time between identifying and discussing problems. Discussing them in ways that are honest, that are frank, that are respectful. And I want to have you be able to walk out of here with just a few tools that you can use to make that happen. So I'm going to look at 3 big ideas. The first one is pretty simple. Some conversations are more crucial than others, right? That 98% of the time, 98% of us do 98% of the right stuff around conversations. That means that 2% of the time, 2% of us do 2% of the wrong stuff. And my argument is that that little percentage has a hugely disproportionate impact on our success and the organization's success. Big idea number 2 is the way you start a conversation determines whether you'll like the way it ends. It's what we call the hazardous half minute, that first 30 seconds that sets the tone. And then third, I want to argue that we don't have performance problems so much as we have influence problems. Rather than simply describing someone's performance and hoping they get better, we need a robust strategy for influencing them to get better and influencing ourselves.